Fun pod today. We're going to talk football, NFL football, go through a bunch of off-season storylines with Albert Breer, who we love talking to. And we got Craig Kilborn stopping by. You never know where that's going to go. Probably some Bob Evans and life advice before Wargon's big day. He's one of our favorites to talk to, and he's doing it while he's on vacation, so we appreciate his effort. Albert Breer, SI.com, Monday Morning Quarterback, and you can check him out with us occasionally throughout the season as well, man. Thanks for doing this. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Ryan?
Good. All right, so let's get through kind of like as we ramp up for camp here and the preseason schedule, which is a few weeks away. Let's talk kind of generally about where we're at right now. Who do you think had the best? Give me the collection of teams you thought had the best offseason.
Yeah, it's you look at some of the contenders, and I actually look at the teams that did the best to kind of build some momentum for themselves going into the year based on where they were last year. I think one that to me is at least interesting. Now they still have one outstanding contract issue would be Buffalo, because they had, I think, really like what was a reset year last year. They still made it to the conference title game. They're able to get a lot of their contract situations taken care of. So they just got really good momentum going into the season. Now, is there some sort of over the top move that they made? No. But I really like where they are. New England's an obvious one. I think basically what they did was a carbon copy of what Washington did last year, where they went and brought in guys who are sort of middle of the roster guys that'll help lay a foundation. And all of those guys have connections to a coach or coaches on their staff. Carlton Davis played for Terrell Williams last year in Detroit. Spillane played for McDaniels in Vegas, and was with Vrabel before that in Tennessee. Harold Landry played for Vrabel in Tennessee. So you go down the list of the guys they acquired, and so much of it's like guys who are going to at least get you up to level ground at certain positions, and you had background with, which is, again, exactly what the Commanders did a year ago. And then, looking at like the teams in the NFC, I think what Minnesota did, now a lot of it's going to ride on J.J. McCarthy, right? But I really like how they dove into like what got them beat last year and dove into like where they felt like their weakness was. They felt like they weren't tough enough in the middle of the lines. And so they went and they got Ryan Kelly and Will Frias from the Colts. Then they doubled down in the first round of the draft and draft Donovan Jackson, for their offensive line. Christian Darrisaw's coming back from the torn ACL. And then they had Jonathan Allen to their defensive line. And so I think, you look at what Minnesota did, and I think that there's a real logic to what they did. We'll see how JJ plays. Same thing with Chicago. Chicago really went in on their offensive line and bringing in Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman. I look at like they're not sexy moves, but I think, those teams like really kind of built a foundation for themselves.
You brought up something that I think is really interesting and very specific to the NFL, and that's when new coaches, new coordinators are in place. It's like, all right, how many guys can I find that have played for me that I can bring over here? And I think it's very specific for certain units where there's pass rushers. You can be like, what happened to that guy? It's like, well, they're asking him to do something entirely different. Yep. And in this system, he's going to be a force. And in that system, he's going to be invisible. I think guys in the secondary, it can be very similar. Probably a receiver, or it's like, well, if you're asking this guy to beat somebody on go routes on the outside all game long, like that's not really who it is. But we have to find ways to get him open maybe in the middle of the field. And then he's an entirely different guy. But I also think it can come down to maybe the evaluation of the previous coach having somebody going, no, let me get him back because I know what he's good at already.
Yep.
But also the addition of having somebody who understands what your system is and what your philosophy is to then coach it to the other players. I think that's incredibly unique. And I mean, basketball, it's just like, look, you can have a system, but it's pretty straightforward. Baseball's pretty straightforward. The NFL, it feels like the first thing new coaches do when they get into a place is like, let me find 3 or 4 guys that know how I operate.
Right. And Washington, I think that was what was so smart about what Washington did. Now, I don't know that anybody could have predicted Jaden Daniels would play as well as he did. They loved him, obviously, coming out. You don't draft him second overall if you don't love him, but like the idea that he would do something historic, that obviously is going to exceed expectations. And that's what gets them to 12 wins. And the conference was like the NFC was soft last year. So I think that gave them a little bit of a window to reach a conference title game, although they did beat Detroit along the way. But the names are not recognized. Like no one at this point last year said, "Oh, Washington crushed the offseason," because they signed Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler, who Dan Quinn had in Dallas, because they brought back Bobby Wagner, who Dan Quinn had in Seattle all of those years ago. Even like an Austin Eckler, who was with Anthony Lynn, right? Like when A. Lynn was the Chargers coach. You just know what you're getting. You know what I mean? Like there's no projection. It's like, I know how I can use this guy. We're not expecting too much out of him. And he's going to be able to go into that room and be a teacher of what we're trying to accomplish to the rest of the players. It really gives you a chance to get up and running fast. And so I think Washington did a really good job with that. And again, like no one was sitting here last year saying like, oh my God, look at Washington. They got Jeremy Chin and they got Dorrance Armstrong, and now they're going to the NFC title game. But like the sum of all of those moves was we hit a bunch of singles and doubles, and now all of a sudden we put 7 runs on the board. You know what I mean, so to speak. And I think that there's a logic to that. I mean, again, like you said, in football, where how you use a player can be so different from system to system. Like the amount of certainty that Washington was able to build up and doing what they did, I think it was a huge part of them having the improvement that they had. And I think, again, like I think New England is the sort of facsimile of that this year, where they've done something that's very, very close to what Washington did a year ago, and trying to get up to level ground at a bunch of different spots and knowing exactly what you're going to get out of the players you're bringing in.
If I said, okay, you got to bet $100 and you have to pick these 2 things you're more confident in, picking the 3 best teams in the NFL after the season's over, or the 3 worst teams, what would you be more confident in?
I would say maybe 3 best, but that's tough. Like I would say if I had to say $100, 3 best teams, I think the obvious thing to do, the safe thing to do, would be to say Philly, Kansas City, Buffalo, probably, right? Like, am I missing anything there? That's probably it, I think.
No, because I mean, this kind of plays into something else. I mean, if you look at the over-unders on the season, there's 4 teams that are 11.5, and it's the 3 you said. Baltimore's also in there. I've seen Buffalo at 12.5 wins. Yeah, but only one.
Because of the schedule, right? Like their schedule's really soft. Yeah.
So, but basically, like across the board, where we're at right now on season totals, it's those 4 teams. So it's hard. Like I almost feel like Kansas City, because they get stomped in the Super Bowl. That does it feel like everybody's kind of off of them collectively? Like I don't think anybody thinks they're going to stink, but there's just there's just a different feeling about them. Go ahead.
I think Kansas City could be better than they were. Like I know like Matt Nagy had a vision for the offense last summer that was, all right, we're going to reintroduce, like, because they went away from, I mean, it's obviously part of a league-wide trend, but like everybody was looking for their Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs trade Tyreek Hill, and part of their logic was, well, everybody's running shell coverage and to try to prevent those guys from making a big impact. So, and they're putting tons of DBs in the field. So how are we going to combat that? We're going to be bigger and more physical at the skill positions, so we can throw the ball underneath and break tackles and all of that. And then last year they sort of swung back around, where it's like, okay, they draft Xavier Worthy, they bring in Hollywood Brown, and the idea was we're going to clear out space with the 2 guys over the top, and then have Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce running underneath into open space. And I think that happens. I think that could happen this year. They had Rice for what, I don't have it in front of me, a month last year, but they felt like he was trending to be a top 10 receiver in the league by the end of the year. When he got hurt, we'll see what happens with the disciplinary stuff. Obviously, that's a factor too. And then Hollywood was hurt for most of the year. Hollywood and Rice never played together. Xavier Worthy, you could start to see what he was becoming by the end of the year. And maybe all this comes together. Pacheco back healthy again. And I think you can count on Steve Spagnuolo having a really good defense. I like, to me, like they've got a chance to be a lot better on offense than they were a year ago, which sounds crazy to say. And I think, again, like I think they're going to be really good on defense because there's a good base of talent on defense. The two X factors, I think, and this is just an age thing, is like, is there a drop off with Kelsey? Is there a drop off with Chris Jones? But as long as those guys are playing well, I think the Chiefs could actually be better this year than they were last year.
Okay, let's just go then to the Super Bowl winner off of this.
Yep.
If you go back a year ago, the Philadelphia story's pretty crazy. Going into it, it's like, okay, we know how talented they are. The additions, it just feels like they're so aggressive, and they're aggressive in the right ways when they're like, hey, if this is somebody who we think is elite at that position, let's go for it. I think that I love their draft board in the way they go about it too. It's like, what are we doing? Like, why are we screwing around with this? Now, granted, Carter was available because of all the issues. So sometimes people can revisit draft history and be like, I can't believe this guy.
Stop you there. I love that. Like, look at these idiotic teams. It's like, do you think Jalen Carter would have worked out the same way if like he's playing for the Bears? If he was playing, probably wouldn't have been as easy to keep that thing on the tracks,
Well, there's that part of it, but I'm more like just the inaccuracy of like, I can't believe the league let us get this demon. And you're like, well, there was a reason why he was available to you. But I think it's not just the Carter pick. The Carter pick is its own little box.
That's a reward for your success. Like that you can do that, Yeah.
Right. And I think that when Howie puts together the board and he just goes like, why are we making this complicated? Like, I think this guy is just a supremely talented dude. And, the depth that they've possibly built here with the youth on the D line would be an incredible, like turning the page from what they've had before and then just transitioning a unit with that talent is just so hard to do. So anyway, but back to it, it's like, hey, Hurts was clearly hurt last year. Yep. They have that great start, but something felt weird. And so it was this kind of hangover from 23 into 24. And you're like, how long is Sirianni going to last? Is Hurts really the guy? And Hurts, as we've learned, doesn't necessarily have to be the guy in that elite class of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks. But that is riding a ship with massive expectations in an incredibly tough market. It's hard to say, hey, they didn't get enough credit when it's like, well, dude, they won the Super Bowl. Everybody's pretty aware of how special the Eagles season was. But it's worth remembering how tenuous that entire situation felt. And I wonder what it's going to be like feeling none of that because they accomplish what they would set out to accomplish.
Yeah. And I think it's like, I'm not breaking any new ground here by saying it, but it's just what they've done on the lines of scrimmage and like having guys ready to go when they've lost other guys. And, whether it's, if you want to go back, it's like they tried to replace Jason Peters with Andre Dillard, and then they had Jordan Mailata behind that, like when Dillard didn't work out. They lose Jason Kelsey, and they have, really 2 answers. Cam Jurgens or Landon Dickerson could have played center if they needed him to. And then on the defensive line, losing Fletcher Cox and having Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter there, it's just like their draft and develop machine it just keeps churning. And it's like, we mentioned Jalen Carter, like Jihad Campbell was somebody that a lot of people felt like was a top 10 player in the draft, but he's got the injury issues. And like, are you okay with the fact that like, he's had one shoulder done, he might have to have the other shoulder done after the year? Well, if you're the Eagles, you can take that risk because it's not the end of the world if you swing and you miss on a guy at the end of the first round. So like, I am interested to see what this looks like without there's never going to be no pressure in Philly, but now if you're Nick Sirianni, you've been to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, you've won 1. Jalen Hurts, same thing. Like, what does this look like without the unrelenting pressure on them? And can they keep winning the same way? Their offense is a little unique and different. This is going to be their 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years. That's a factor, like what does that look like? You're going now to Kevin Patullo after having Kellen Moore last year. So there is some natural attrition and everything else. But I mean, it's hard not to look at that roster and say the arrow is still pointing up in a lot of areas. And like all these places where they were getting old a couple of years ago, they've now sort of reset and replenished and have ascending players. So it's hard to imagine the Eagles not being like a 12 or 13 win team.
San Francisco feels like a reset.
Yep.
The bill was coming due for Purdy. The number comes in a little bit lower average annual salary than some of his contemporaries, but you go, can they pull this off? And there's still a lot of projections. And I think of Buffalo last year, where it's like, okay, they're kind of having their reset year financially. I mean, other than winning a Super Bowl, I mean, it's gone so well for Buffalo. I'm wondering if it's not a blueprint question, but does Buffalo's success and then where they're positioned now, is that the kind of thing San Francisco can look to and say, hey, this can happen where you can still be a contender despite knowing you're going to have to change up your roster here?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's actually like pretty simple though. I think a lot of it's just drafting and developing well. You know what I mean? Like so much of it is like, well, if you're going to take on 60 million in dead cap or 70 million in dead cap, how do you get around that? You have a cheap player who's playing way above his contract because he's still in his rookie deal, And so for Buffalo, like that's Khalil Shakir coming along. That's Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox helping replace some of the production you lost when Stephon Diggs was gone. It's getting as much as you got out of James Cook. It's Greg Rousseau becoming a top end pass rusher, even though Von Miller wasn't everything you thought he was going to be when you signed him. It's all of those things, and that's what the Niners are going to need this year. What does Ricky Pearsall look like? What are you getting out of Juwan Jennings? What's Ayuk look like coming back off the knee because you don't have Debo anymore? Do you have enough depth at running back, having lost Mason, who was a really good backup for McCaffrey? So much of it comes down to like what you're developing behind the guys that you're losing. And they've drafted really well there over the years. And, I still think like you take the top 5 or 6 guys in the roster, like their core guys, and that'd be like Purdy, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Bosa, Warner. And then I guess now, Lenore's going through some stuff, but Lenore, they just signed him to a contract. It's like, that's still a pretty good core, even without some of the guys they lost. And so yeah, I mean, it's going to be on Kyle and his staff now to sort of develop the guys, have the guys ready to go. But I think in that division, the schedule that they have, like I would think they should have the expectation that Buffalo had going into last year. They'll still be a playoff team. Now that doesn't mean they're going to get back to a conference title game or a Super Bowl, but they should still very much be a playoff team based on their core, on the young talent they have there, and the division they play and the schedule they play.
How bad are the bottom 3 then? Because if we bring it back around to it.
So what are we talking about? Tennessee?
New Orleans. Cleveland has more talent than these teams, but they have
the quarterback situation could. I mean, like, I like New Orleans has like what could be a really good offensive line, which, if you're good on the lines of scrimmage, you can be competitive week to week. They don't play in the toughest division, but
they're just a tough team to figure out. Like, what's the plan?
There's no quarterback. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, unless Tyler Shuck becomes oh my God, like the only reason he fell to the second round was because he's 4 years older than the other guys. Like, maybe that's the answer. But I think New Orleans is in this weird spot where, well, they've got like Mickey Loomis as the GM who doesn't want to bottom out. But I do think there are some people in that building who would like to, like, hey, like at some point we have to reset this. At some point we have to start over a little bit. And I think the Carr thing kind of pushed them further in that direction. And now, I mean, this would be the year where, I mean, it's funny because you look at like the draft next year, and I don't think Arch will come out, but would it be tempting to him if the Saints had the first pick and he played really well? I mean, you and I both know like Arch still has a lot of work to do before he's the number 1 pick in the draft. But, Garrett Nussmeier is the Saints offensive coordinator's son, so like there are a lot of reasons like for the Saints to be looking at next year's quarterback class. And then I would say Tennessee's probably in that group where, if you're them, like the expectation is, like have Cam Ward playing really well by the end of the year. Who else would be down there? See, Cleveland, like you're talking about their quarterback situation, holding them hostage, right? Because I don't think they're that bad. They won 11 games 2 years ago. Are they that bad?
No, clearly I think they have more talent than a Tennessee or a New Orleans. I don't really know. I mean, the thing is, if you go on the totals, and it might have more to do with schedule, it's the Saints and Browns at the bottom at 4.5
The
wins.
Browns, the front end of the Browns schedule is brutal. I think it's like,
right.
I remember looking at it. I'm like, it's like hard not to see 0-6 here. Like that doesn't mean they're going to go 0-6, but it's like hard to find wins early in their schedule.
It's Cincy, at Baltimore, Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Those are your first 5, and then you're at Pittsburgh, which, division game, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the NFL too. They're probably not just going to start 0-6.
Yeah.
I mean, how the league works.
What does Indy look like?
Yeah, other than having like their own triplets at the skill positions, which I don't know that there's necessarily posters of those 3 guys. Maybe they're available at the airport in downtown Indianapolis. But it sounds, the Daniel Jones thing, like he's going to win the job. Unless Anthony Richardson all of a sudden is incredibly healthy and a completely different person. Yeah. And this is a long stretch, which, you kind of understand. It's like we still have to kind of figure out what we have or what we don't have. I think it might be one of those things where everybody else knows what you have and you're hoping you have something different in Richardson. And I don't know what's going to happen to that group, obviously, with the passing of ownership too. Yeah.
The Dolphins are another one who they're in a really funky spot.
This felt personal because I was reading one of your like kind of summer hangout, like here's a bunch of thoughts on all these different teams. You're right. Okay. Because I think there's also a conversation of like kind of make or break year for QBs, and we can get into it. I don't even know that Richardson is on that level. I think Trevor Lawrence is there, but clearly like Tua's season here probably sets the tone for like, what is his future actually going to be with Miami? Or are they looking to make some sort of change? And the way you framed that, you also seemed like you were getting a ton of shit from Dolphins fans.
Yeah.
Like I could already see you being pre-defensive. So state your Dolphins case, the position of why you would have them this far towards the bottom.
So I'll compare them to Pittsburgh, right? So like Pittsburgh, I think looked at it like, and this is why they looked at Stafford and then eventually acquire Rodgers, is because they saw it as, all right, so we have this group of players. At the time, it was T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, and Cam Hayward's obviously at the end, are we ever going to be able to win at the highest level with these guys? Because we've gotten to the playoffs with them. We've been competitive, but we haven't won a playoff game since 2016. So if we're being honest with ourselves, with Justin Fields as the quarterback, are we going to be able to get to a point where we're going to be over the top and we're going to be competing with Baltimore and with Cincinnati and with Buffalo and with Kansas City, teams that have been to the Super Bowl or knocked on the door of the Super Bowl? And I think they said to themselves, you know what? We maybe have a year or 2 left. Let's just go for it. And that's what that's like every move of their offseason, it shows that, right? I think the Dolphins were honest with themselves quietly, honest with themselves in another way where it's like, maybe we're not getting there with this group, and maybe now is the time to retool. And so Teron Armstead retires, which was a big deal. Replacing a left tackle is not easy. They're going to have a 2nd round pick from last year and Patrick Paul playing left tackle. Tyreek Hill had his least productive year since he was a rookie. Jalen Ramsey is now gone. And they had the 2 edge rushers who can't stay healthy, and Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. So what are they? Like, where is the strength?
By the way, wouldn't you rather have Minkah though still back instead of Jalen?
I think so.
Trade?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think having Minkah back stabilizes them a little bit. And it's very specific to what they are on defense with Anthony Weaver. And like in Baltimore, when they remade the defense under Wink, and Weaver was there at the end of that, like when they remade the defense under Wink, they really empowered the safety. So it's been a priority to have a really smart safety. So that was Eric Weddle for a bunch of years. It was Kyle Hamilton more recently. And so like Anthony Weaver gets that on defense with Minkah coming in. But is Minkah the type of like over the top difference maker where he's going to just change the fortune of the team? I don't know. And I just like, this is the question I've asked people on them. How many players on that team right now are going to be there in 2 years? I could come up with 2. 3 if you count Tua, right? Jalen Waddle, Chop Robinson. I think those two guys will be there in 2027. You look at the roster, like how many other guys can you say that about? There aren't very many, you know? And so like that I think it kind of illustrates where they are right now, like where it's like, this is sort of like a soft reset for them. Which I think which by the way, to all the Dolphins fans out there listening, I think it's the smart thing to do. I think you had topped out with that group, and now I think this tests Tua's ability to have a little bit more on his shoulders, where it's not just go out there and play point guard, where you have to carry the team a little bit more, which is what happens when you get paid like you got paid.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know I'll ever figure out with quarterbacks. Like, I don't know if I'll ever, as many years I've been watching this sport, like who are the guys that are just following a script? But it's and then who are the guys like? Because I think there's a Bo Nix conversation. It's like, is this guy actually this good, or is it just crafted perfectly? Because I mean, the numbers. I mean, for a rookie quarterback to have the season he had, if you're in Denver, you're like, why are you guys debating this anymore? Like, we've got our guy for the next 10 years.
I'm not sure anybody. Do people realize how much dead money the Broncos were carrying last year?
Yeah, they didn't even get a chance. Although the dead money conversation, and I think this is something that's always worth to bring up, when you look at the cap spike from each single year, like these are way easier to swallow.
They are.
Than I think. Like they're not necessarily the death sentence that we used to think they were 10 years ago.
But they were like 80 million.
Yeah, look, it's a massive, massive number.
The Broncos, like, I just don't know. I mean, like, I think what was really impressive about what Bo Nix did was, like, I don't know, like, who is Stephon Diggs to Josh Allen there? Who is, Tyreek Hill to Patrick Mahomes there? Like, who is that guy for them where you're like, man, they really, like, have, like, difference-making players around him. Their offensive line's good, not great. Like, I think Bo Nix deserves a little more credit for what he did last year. I mean, Cortland Sutton's a good receiver. I like their young guys. Like, I think they got a chance to be good players. Vele's got a chance. Franklin's got but I don't know that people like look at them. Now, their defense was really good, and that makes a big difference. But even then, like on defense, it's not like they've got all these big money players. Those are all guys they drafted and developed through the system. So I think Bo Nix had to carry like a little bit of a heavier weight than people are giving him credit for there. Now, he had Sean Payton, and that's a huge advantage, no doubt.
Yeah, but I like that. I like the way that you said it. So let's Bo Nix is not in this group, but I think Tua, Trevor Lawrence, like who else would be? I don't know if it's fair to even put Darnold in this group of like.
Prove it, you mean? Like, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like, is Jordan Love in that group?
Well, Jordan Love's going to be the starter for the Green Bay Packers no matter what in 2026.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I understand your point. It's a bit like with Love going, hey, that high-end stuff that we saw, like you need to continue to build on some of that.
Right.
And it felt like you were holding the team back, which is not what that contract means. And it's the Packers, too. If the Packers gave you that kind of contract, that's not the kind of organization. This is like, all right, whatever. We've got our starter, and let's just pay him what everybody else gets paid. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit there. I'm just wondering what that list would be, or maybe I'm thinking about a late August podcast monologue too. It could also could be that.
I mean,
because like even Darnold's deal, 3 years, $100 million, half of it's guaranteed with Seattle. Minnesota was totally fine moving off of him. Clearly, they love JJ enough to have drafted him, so it makes sense that they're like, "Hey, great year. We're moving on. We're going to stay on the rookie quarterback part of it too." There's always a group,
I think like Baker.
Really, I thought we all liked him.
I think Baker's proved a lot. Like, but what's interesting about Baker is like, so like next year will be a contract year for him. So, now you're talking about, because every time you come up to that juncture in the contract, it turns into it. Like, do we want to hitch our wagon to the guy again? Once they get paid like that, it's like, and that was, part of the equation for the Vikings with Darnold. You know what I mean? Do we want to hitch our wagon to him? And I think so much of like what the Vikings did, like in offering Daniel Jones what they did and wanting to bring Darnold back for another year, like so much of it was, well, like, we'd love to have the insurance policy based on the team that we have. Like, this isn't a rebuilding team that can throw a year overboard in the name of quarterback development. So we want an insurance policy, but We don't want to like just jam on the pause button on the JJ McCarthy area and not give him a chance to compete, which is part of why they said no to Rodgers, right? And I think anytime you're coming up to that point in a quarterback's contract where the Bucs are with Baker, like this will be a critical year, and people don't realize it yet, but it's like he's going to be looking for a new contract after the year. So how do you handle that? You know what I mean? Like where are they at with him? And are they going to be willing to do an even bigger contract with him after the year? I think it's an interesting spot to be in too. Because there's different levels to all of this, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the Darnold contract is new. So,
yeah.
And with the guarantees on it, it's probably a 2-year deal. Because that's just at least the way I was kind of thinking of, all right, if the presentation of this question is this guy, no matter what, the starter in 2026, then that's not really a question of if it's a make or break season. I think you could even make the argument for Tua. If Tua is healthy and they're not that good, he's probably just going to be the starter again, because it's going to be hard to find somebody else unless it goes bad enough where they feel like coaching change and the whole thing. And I don't have the contract in front of me either to know if there's an out on it.
What makes it interesting though is like with Miami, right? Like with a team like that, like it doesn't even mean like, does he not going to be on the roster in 26? Because like, let's just say theoretically that all the quarterback, and I don't think there's any like quarterback that the NFL is looking at right now and saying, yes, that guy's going to be a top 5 pick, right? But there's a handful of them that could be if they play really well in the fall, right? And you follow this stuff probably closer than I do, but Garrett Nussmeier, Lenora Sellers, Arch, I guess we can throw him in the pile. Drew Aller, I may be missing somebody here. But there's like, I think 4, 5, 6 guys, like where does this look a little bit like the 24 draft or the 21 draft, right? Where there's going to be multiple options at the top. And then if you're Miami and you're not very good and you wind up with the 5th or 6th pick in the draft, you have to consider that, where it's like Tua may still be on the roster in 26, but it's with the first round rookie behind him, I don't know.
Yeah. There's a few other names, but man, it's always a little funny looking at some of the stuff in July and then the draft. I hate to bring up the Matt Barkley example every single time we do this, but from top 10.
I had somebody the summer before he came out, and like a team guy, not like somebody in the media, a team guy, compare him to Troy Aikman before his last year at SC. So I don't think that guy got in a close enough look yet. No offense to Matt Barkley.
Yeah, no offense. No offense, Matt. Great guy. Wouldn't be offended. 2 quick things before we let you go. Rodgers, Pittsburgh. They replaced like one version of annoying in Russell Wilson with an entirely different brand of annoying with Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a ton of money. The Steelers don't like to hit the reset button. There's tons of talent on the defense. They switch out Pickens for DK, and they have no problems giving DK the contract that Seattle didn't want to give him. But this is really going to hinge on Rodgers. It'd be one thing if he was just all in about the team. And I would say that Jets experience proved that, he's the priority before the team is the priority. At least that's the way it felt to me. And so I don't know how that fits in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They were able to do a lot of relationship building, I think, and just the trust that they had between, March and then him signing. And I would think it was early June, if I remember right. And I do think a big piece of what appealed to Aaron about Pittsburgh was that, like, there were more guys that he could kind of look at as his peers in Pittsburgh. And, really when, he's looking at his options, and this is me putting pieces together on some of it, but like, I think, you look at his option, what his options were in March when he really did make this decision. And it was the Giants, I think, were a lot of what, like, he was part of with the Jets, where it was a promising young core of players. You got Dexter Lawrence there, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Malik Neighbors, Andrew Thomas. So you've got like this promising young core of players that's never really done it, which is exactly what he walked into with the Jets, where it was like, we want you to come in and elevate this place. Whereas with the Steelers,
think about what that defense did though in that Zach Wilson season. for the Jets, 2
Right.
years ago.
Right.
That was I was looking at that again because Salah's back in San Francisco, and you go, okay, fine, maybe he was a great head coach, but it felt like
the defense was
that defense at one point was so nasty.
Yeah.
And you had Zach Wilson just giving you no chance whatsoever. Right. So it should have, look, if Rodgers stays healthy, maybe in 24 in this whole thing, maybe it's a really successful year and we all feel better about Rodgers. But continue.
Yeah, but but what I'm saying is, I think what he was being asked to do with the Jets was take this young core of players and elevate it, right? Like take this young core of players that doesn't know how to win yet and lift them up, right? And I think with the Giants, it would have been the same thing. Like a lot of guys who are really good players who haven't won yet and like come in and be like the agent of change. Pittsburgh's not asking him to do that. Pittsburgh's asking him to come in and play quarterback, right? And I think that's why this has a chance to work, because they're not asking him to be like the bellwether for the team. Like as he goes, so goes the team. And if he's having a bad day, then the team, Pittsburgh isn't going to be like that. Like that locker room's full of established veterans, good leaders. Aaron just come in and play quarterback. And I had a conversation at the end of the summer last year with Aaron. And it was about like his appreciation just for playing football, and like, it was actually really interesting having this conversation with him because it was coming off the trip to Egypt and all of that. And he was like, you know what? Like, he's like, I spent so much energy over the course of my career trying to show people that I'm more than just a football player. It's almost like I forgot how much I love football. And like at this point in my life, I just want to enjoy playing football. And that stuck with me because I think the Steelers are going to give him the opportunity to do that without all the noise around it. Just come in and be the quarterback. And like there are games, and just talking to teams like talking to other teams who are evaluating him, like they looked at him at the end of the year, the games against the Dolphins, the game against the Jaguars in particular, and they're saying he still has a lot of it. Like there's not like a huge decline in skill here. So I think he's gonna be a good personality match for Arthur Smith, and I think just what they're asking of him, which is like you don't need to be Superman here, dude. Like just come play quarterback. I think is going to give him a good chance to succeed. Here's the other thing about the difference between him and Russ. Like Aaron, one thing you notice about Aaron, and I kind of respect this about him, Aaron punches up. Like the people below him actually really like him. Like some of the guys that are like the support staff, everything else, like some of the lower level players really like him. Aaron's problems were always with people above him. Like Aaron's problems were always the front office, sometimes coaches, but he always punched up. And I think like that's not going to happen in Pittsburgh because of who the Steelers are.
Yeah, it's a really good point. All right, real quick before we let you go here, give me a rookie, because everybody loves their rookies, which is one of my favorite things in the NFL. They get him into camp, they run him through, and then the local news is like, oh my God, we liked him, but like we really like him. It's like, well, you just drafted him 2 months ago, so there's a pretty good chance you weren't going to completely dislike him. But give me a team that you trust on a rookie, any position. I'd actually prefer it not be quarterback, where it's somebody who you feel like, hey, this group is raving about this guy that's come in that's worth at least sharing with us.
Yeah. All right. So I think Genty is pretty obvious. I think Hampton and with the Chargers is one you'd really look at and say, yeah, I bet that'll work. Like I said, I like Donovan Jackson with the Vikings. I think he's going to be able to make a difference. I think one of the more intriguing ones to watch the pass rushers in Atlanta, and like that. How does that Jalen Walker, James Pierce thing work? And like how many eggs they put in that basket to fix what's been a real problem for them over the last 5 years or so, and trying to generate pass rush. But there's an undrafted rookie in Kansas City, Jake Briningstool, who like they've been able to develop tight ends there. It's not just Kelsey. Noah Gray's become a really good player as a young guy, and like just talking to people there. I remember the way they were talking about Isaiah Pacheco a couple of years ago. And like, you always have your radar up, like, okay, is this guy going to be Mr. August? You know what I mean? Like, and like, you're just worried that like, yeah, the guy's going to flash in training camp and the preseason and then never be heard from again. But, when the Chiefs talk about some of these young offensive guys they bring in, they've generally been like, they generally become something. And so this guy Briningstool, who like no one's ever heard the name, is one that had a really strong spring. And I think it might be hard for him to get on the field because of Kelsey and Gray there, but I think they eventually think he's going to become something.
Love it. I love that stuff. My favorite answer of the entire pod. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. You can check out Breer, the MMQB podcast. Very positive run through the conference, the division previews. And you can always check out his work again on SI.com. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
I have to introduce him because it just makes sense on a podcast. His name is Craig Kilborn. He looks terrific. His lamp looks even, I don't want to say it looks better than Craig. It's different categories. He has some basketball news. He's hooked up with our guy, Adam McKay, ESPN's trailer for Chasing Basketball Heaven, a new 30 for 30 podcast that premieres July 22nd. So we wanted to make sure we got the word out there, but I would like you to take over right now and host a little bit.
In a second, let's talk about the project, and then I'm going to dive into it's either a compliment to you or a backhanded compliment, which are kind of my favorites.
Yeah, I've got
backhanded compliments concerning our friend Karl Anthony Towns. But I just wanted to say they've announced it today. Does this air on Thursday? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, we're
cool.
We're day of. Yeah.
So I'm a basketball junkie, and I'd never heard of Martin Manley. He's the Bill James of basketball. He was an analytics guy and very odd bird. Only drank Pepsi, only listened to James Taylor, disappeared. Very eccentric. And so it's a 6-part series, podcast series on ESPN 30 for 30. And I get to play Martin Manley. Interesting.
How are you on JT's catalog?
JT?
James Taylor.
I don't listen to, I know James Taylor's great, Sweet Baby James, but in all honesty, when I'm listening to my America radio station driving up the coast, I skip a lot of JT. Sorry about that.
That hurts.
He's great. He's great. I think he did Wichita Lineman for President Obama, which is a great song. Anyways.
I went to go see James Taylor with his daughter, and there were other people involved. Yeah. But
you mean you were with his daughter sitting next to her, or he was performing with his daughter?
No, he was performing and we were with his daughter. Wow. There was a group of like 4 or 5 of us. There's a big Vineyard connection. And then it was a subdued crowd at that stage of James' career. It wasn't a raucous group. I think he even had the Philharmonic, which usually sets the tone for a concert that you're not going to be yelling Freebird at it.
Right.
But she said, she was like, when there's like a really quiet part, let's all yell Coco Cabana as a request. And we were younger. Libations did flow. And we waited just the perfectly quiet part, and we just screamed Coco Cabana. And he laughed because it was like a joke that he had with the daughter. A lot of people around us didn't laugh.
I wonder if the joke was about the song by Manilow. Is that what it was or not?
Yeah. It was like we were yelling as if we were just this crew of people saying, if you're doing requests.
We wanted to hear Coco. Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah. But, then we got some nasty looks. But I think once the daughter gives you the go ahead and do it, you're allowed to do it. Then backstage. But it was, again, it was pretty chill.
How old were you at the time? And in what part of the show, the concert, did your shirt come off? I guess those are the 2 obvious questions.
21. I don't think I took it off at that show, but it was off probably on the car ride home, because there was no way we were going to make the last boat. It was just a real quick, summer Vineyard. Let's shoot up. Let's do this. I love James Taylor. So I'm trying to, this is all back work for you. I know that the part is mostly about basketball and analytics,
right?
But just think of the depth that you have now. Can you explain to me? So you're doing the voice character? This is a drama that, like, it's a little different here. Like,
it's pretty unique. There's a really talented audio producer in New York, John Delore, the Reverend John Delore, and he just put this together. So there's this guy, Rich Levine, and he has a partner. They're from Boston. Rich is probably in his early 40s. big Celtic fan, big Kilborn fan. He reached out to me.
Love
People
that.
reach out sometimes and say, hey, you want to do something? And I listen. But this sounded so interesting and unique that I said, sure, it's a 6-part podcast series. I can do that. I got time. I can do that. And
Are you still taking acting classes to stay sharp?
I'm always, as Jeff Goldblum told me years ago, you just work on it every day on your own. Bogart was self-taught. By the way, speaking of acting, I find this fascinating. You know how people are opinionated? Ray Liotta did not like Clint Eastwood as an actor. I don't know if
I
you
just
heard
saw
of
that clip. I just saw the clip with Andy Cohen.
Yes.
Good friend.
Yeah. And no one can match Clint's career, obviously. And he's got a presence and, he's different. He's a director and he's an actor, but he's so charismatic. He has such a presence. But then I was looking up do you remember that guy, the actor's name? Very easy. Jim Rockford. What was his name? It's very easy.
James Garner?
James Garner. He didn't like Steve McQueen as an actor. He said he's merely a movie star. So I find that kind of fascinating that people, some of these, Steve McQueen, I mean, he's like Clint. He's got a presence. He doesn't have to say too much.
Yeah, I was reading the Bob Evans book, and I love that part about how McQueen's with Bob's lady, and Bob is, I wouldn't say he was a connected guy, but it was clear guys in the mob liked Bob so much. I mean, Bob, after I got done reading the Bob Evans book, I felt like I should do more stuff. I was like,
Right.
if you're a man that has desires, you're like, I've never felt more boring after I got done with that book. And then he's like with his mob buddy, who's a tough guy. And Bob says to him, he's like, just so you know, if you go up to McQueen, like he knows karate. And I know you don't like swearing. And the guy turns to Bob and goes, Bob, he's a fucking actor.
Now, this is, I know I've asked you this, but when the Bob Evans book, Kid Stays in the Picture, you listen to the audio, correct?
No, I read it. And so what I've decided to do is, after you told me about the audio, because I know he became a friend of yours, which makes a lot of sense, that I was going to wait. I wanted the retention levels to go down so that I can revisit the story. So I wanted to give it a few years. So I'm going to listen to the audio.
Yeah, it's legendary because it's his voice and he's just hilarious. And I know we talked about The Offer, the 10-part series with Miles Teller, and then Matthew Good played Bob Evans to a T. I rewatch things, and I rewatched it, the 10-part series last week. Third time I've seen it, and it is better than ever. It's better than ever.
I loved it. And Matthew Good is so good in that. Did you hear about his tryout? Apparently he read for James Bond and he went really dark and they were like, we're good. And I just want Matthew Good to do something again. Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't get it. He's really, so he was so good in that. I'm sure he can figure out some other stuff, but it's not like he's this headlining actor and all these different things. Right. He's so good as Bob Evans. I wonder if there's just a spinoff of him being Bob Evans.
I would watch that. And I think he does have a new show because people have told me about it, and I started the first episode, but I have to continue because it was late at night when I go to bed early. But it's called, what is it called? Apartment Q or something like that, or H?
I'm on it. Whatever it is, I'm writing it down.
Yeah, he has a new Matthew Good has a new series, but I remember one of my other favorite series, 6-part series called The Night Manager with Hugh Laurie and Tom Hiddleston. And I hadn't really seen Hiddleston. And he said that he wanted to play Bond. This was, 5 years ago or so. When there's a new Bond, he wants to be up for it. And I really believe I read the producers were like, no, we want someone a little more masculine, which I found interesting.
I'm all for that. I also think if you're in the Marvel universe, I don't know that you should be James Bond. I'm protective of James Bond. Like, I like Idols. I like the way the music makes me feel, but the lyric about dissing JB, I mean, he's also fictional, so you probably shouldn't get too worked up about it. but Idols gets worked up about a lot of stuff in their lyrics. So I just hope the Bond pick is the right pick. I don't know if Good could have pulled it off or not, but hearing that he went with something a little dark, I don't know. We're off on one of our tangents, so bring us back.
Well, it's called, I just looked it up. It's called Department Q is the new Matthew Good series. I heard it's good. And then, so I did this thing. I said yes to this 6-part series, and I think you'll enjoy it. And I think in episode 1, I'm only in it briefly, and then I do a lot of work in the 4, 5, and 6, and it's very unique, is what I would tell you. Very unique character. Martin Manley. He's from Kansas. I do a little bit of a very subtle Kansas twang because I was born in Kansas. I grew up in Minnesota, and I'd visit my cousins, and they had a little bit of a Southern twang down in Kansas. Interesting.
And so you're the lead. Is it normal that the lead is named in the 3rd paragraph of the press release?
It's funny. I just saw the press release and did a joke to someone and said, I didn't know I'm in the 3rd paragraph. But, you know, I'm a humble servant, not necessarily a lead in it. Play the main character, but it's just, I think the guys, Rich Levine and his partner, his partner is a wonderful guy that I haven't met yet. And his name is Nick.
Yes, Nick.
And
anyways, I don't know if I got that last name right, but that's why you didn't do it.
Yeah, pronounce it again.
I don't know. I gave it one shot. I'm not trying it again.
So anywho, very fun project. Tuesday, July 22nd, it drops, and I'm happy to be a part of it, helping out the young people, 30 for 30 ESPN. Now, Mr. Russillo, you said something during the NBA playoffs that I heard, and it made me laugh. You were on with Bill and another gentleman talking about the Knicks. And this is what you said. Because I got guys in Minnesota who don't like Cat. I got buddies. One of my buddies goes overboard, but he also went overboard on Kirk Cousins, hated Kirk Cousins, mainly the contract, top 5 contract, 15th best quarterback, etc. This is what you said. I just don't like watching Cat. But you know what? The production's there. That's on me. So you said that's on me, and I like that you said that's on me.
Yeah, it sounds like me. And then the production wasn't there, by the way. He's you know what? I think like the Randall Cat 25 playoffs were very fitting. Not telling. They were fitting. They were the 2nd or 3rd installment of a movie that we know exactly. You sit down, 90 minutes. I know exactly what I'm getting. It's over. And that with the excitement about Randall in the first 2 rounds, the letdown of like, we need you to take this up to another level. It's like, I probably am not that guy consistently throughout a series to have that kind of level. And then when I can't provide it, then everything's that much harder for Ant. And the way OKC loads up on Ant, you know, I think there were some Ant things that I didn't necessarily love, but I thought it was a very challenging series for him based on everything that's happening. And then when you get to Cat and you're like, are you going to make some threes here, man? Like, where are the threes? And the lows for both a Randall and Cat remind you why they were ever available in the first place, while the highs kind of lead you to believe you can't got this guy for the other guy. So I think they're actually like a perfect pairing like almost a year later in that trade.
Let me unpack what you just said.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to emphasize again, when you said that's on me, I have a friend in New York, Hank Perlman. He came up with This is Sports Center campaign in the 90s when he worked for Wyden and Kennedy. Now he has a very successful commercial directing company. They direct Super Bowl commercials. He directs them. Very opinionated. He likes to complain. And his big thing is he doesn't like Paul McCartney. So he rips on McCartney and says he's the 4th most talented Beatle. And he's very irresponsible, but he's just being a provocateur. And my friend, Mike Gibbons, said that says more about Hank than it does about Paul McCartney. So when you said it's on me, then you're saying it's on me that I don't like Cat. Now, I respect that. I don't know if you're being serious that it's on you, but you just take a shot at Cat. Cat is bothersome. And my friend who doesn't like him in Minnesota, well, rightfully so, say he picks up silly ass fouls, and he does. He's weird that way. He reaches down. He doesn't move his feet. He has size 22. He doesn't. But then my friend will say, I don't like his changing his voice during the interview. So he'll talk about not just the playing, but the personality. My thing is, I know Cat can be polarizing. I still remain stunned at his offensive talent. I know he can't do it all the time. I know he forces drives and runs over people and hooks. But in this year's playoffs, he did things that I have not seen, where he had 2 unbelievable playoff games, mainly 2 fourth quarters. At Detroit, he hit 2 bomb 3-pointers. He hit a baseline fall-away jumper over the backboard on the right side, and he doesn't shoot those kind of turnaround jump shots. And then he had the game at Indiana where he scored, we called it Rally Cat, New York Post headline, Rally Cat, where he scored 20 in the fourth and had the little Statue of Liberty dunk. Best playoff performance I've ever seen the guy have is those 2 fourth quarters. So I know people want more. I know he bothers people. 3rd team All-NBA. I thought he had a great season. Sorry, buddy.
Had a great season. Totally understand it. You've been a big supporter of his. The zestiness does not bother you as much as it bothers your friend.
I ignore it.
Yeah, that's fine. You choose to ignore something that I can't get past. And I think that's with wisdom. I don't want to call it age. I want to call it wisdom. The gap in our wisdom, maybe it's showing itself right now.
Well, by the way, do you agree that we would watch games and there were other guys in Minnesota who liked Cat, and we all said, why don't they give him the ball? I mean, Jalen Brunson would not look for him at all. And I'm surprised he scored as much as he did in the regular season. They didn't look for him. They didn't run plays for him. And then occasionally they would, and he'd score.
Yeah, as great as Brunson is, and he's so great.
Unreal.
There becomes this reliance on it. And as the stakes raise and the intensity raises, you kind of just default back to like, all right, what likely gives us our best look, because Jalen's just so good at getting space. And the foul baiting too makes him, it's a bit like the Harden stuff. Nothing's as bad as the prime Harden foul baiting, but when you're in that mode as a defender where you go, I'm likely, if I try to contest anything, I'm going to compromise myself and be in a bad position here. So then you become like even more effective as an offensive player. But I just notice it too often where teams will become predictable because they're afraid of trying something that likely is less efficient on the math of make sure this guy has the ball. And look, basketball is a very connected sport. And if you just keep doing that over and over again, even in a playoff moment, like guys don't like standing around watching other people shoot all the time. Yeah. I'm not even necessarily blaming Brunson. Maybe that's why Tibbs isn't there. Who knows? But you just have to figure out a way to be able to balance a little bit more. And I think we've seen that more often than not with the teams that win, is just having a little bit more balance on offense.
So you mentioned Julius Randle, and he had a really slow start with the Wolves, and he can be infuriating. But man, did he play well against the Lakers and took it to Draymond in the second round against the Warriors. Interesting player, able to penetrate in the half-court offense, break down that defense. I think, just to be just totally honest, I'm a purist and I loathe turnovers, and the Wolves will turn it over because they've got some guys, the Jaden McDaniels and the Naz Reids and all these guys. They don't always pass that well. They don't take care of the ball. And OKC exposed, the turnovers. So I don't know, man. I'm sure Tim Connolly, I know he was trying to get Durant, but we were hoping they'd go after a Kobe White or Darius Garland, or if somehow De'Aaron Fox was available, make a trade for another ball handler. And it looks like we're running it back. So the pressure's on my guy who is, I think going to kind of inconsistent and flashy, Rob Dillingham. He's going to get some run next year. And he can handle the ball, but he also turns it over. He's not the steadying force like young Mike Conley was, you know?
No, not polished yet, but twitchy. I
Big time.
Hey, I want to pivot because you mentioned Casablanca and Bogart. Yeah, and I just watched it. I just watched. I'm going through a classics phase right now.
Cool.
Yeah, very excited. And it works. You know, maybe the action scene at the very end wouldn't hold up for a 2025 audience. You know, be like, did that guy just move behind something and they're shooting at each other? You know, but look, we're talking about 1942.
Yeah.
Premiere, American release, 1943. So I think deserves a little leniency on maybe some of the action scenes, special effects. Are you going back and watching any of these things? Are you thinking about, like, I could see you in another life owning a Rick's Cafe, but maybe you wouldn't want to be front and center. Maybe you'd want to be behind the scenes guy, but younger Kilborn was a 1. It wasn't a 2, you know? So are you going back and watching any of that preparation for this audio role?
Yeah, I think Rob Dillingham. No, I'm just kidding. That was a transition, by the way. That was a quick one, but I like it. Just so I understand, have you seen Casablanca many times, or you just decided to rewatch it, or what?
I had watched it, but never like with the writer's eye.
Yeah.
You know?
I think when I first saw it, I was like, well, I saw it in college, but I know I saw it before that. But when I really watched it in college for some class, it was like, oh my God, I've heard every one of these lines before. You know, we'll always have Paris. I mean, all this stuff.
He says, here's looking at you, kid, I think 4 or 5 times. On a rewrite, there might be somebody coming in. Like McKay might go, did I use it too many times here?
Right.
At 43, it plays. 43, the crowd's going wild for all of them. Like I think my viewing experience is very similar. I should count this as the first time I've really watched it. Has it been on before when you're at your grandparents or your mom's like, leave me alone?
Yeah.
This was the first time where I just was like, I'm really going to dig into the whole Bogart. I almost ordered a biography, but I was afraid I was going to be getting the wrong one. Do you want to, I don't know. We could do some lines. Do you want to try a line?
Well, I'm a big Bogart fan. I just wanted to let you know. And I've seen Casablanca at least 4 times, but I watch other stuff. Like he did a Dark Passage, which was a film noir up in San Francisco with a very young Lauren Bacall. When you say do the lines, you want me to guess the line or just try to say lines that are famous or what?
Yeah, I don't know. How about this one? I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her.
Now, wait a second. What movie is that from? That's not from
Notting Hill.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I never saw that movie. I'm proud to say. Is that Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts?
Nailed it for somebody who's never seen it.
Yeah. I've never seen it.
You could have promoted it. Did they come on?
Here's a line. I'll give you a line from a famous Hitchcock movie. Not very sporting using real bullets.
Love it.
Not very sport. You know what movie that is?
Rear Window?
That's James Mason in North by Northwest. James Mason. Not very sporting using real bullets. North by Northwest, my favorite Hitchcock movie.
Oh, you know what I love is your Christian Bale Ferrari.
Yeah, that was just those come and go. It was just it threw me off the trailer, how strong his dialect was there. It just was really, oh man, Ferrari, oh man, Ferrari. It was very funny.
So you're off it.
But tell me more. Tell me more of the old movies you're watching. I love that.
Lawrence of Arabia. Watch that one. What's that?
If you ever have a chance, you probably won't do it. But
you don't know
watch Beckett, which is
Bend it, like Beckett.
They actually spell it with 1 T at the end, Beckett. And he plays a king, and he's with Richard Burton. They both were nominated for an Oscar in 1964 and lost to Rex Harrison and My Fair Lady.
Rex should have won that.
Yes.
I've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah, he killed it.
Totally. Yep. But this is what I find interesting. I watched it. I talked to my neighbor friend who used to do film reviews for down in Orange County. He's a writer. I said, "You ever seen Beckett?" He said, "Yeah, I wrote down a bunch of words there that I hadn't heard before." And he said what I felt, though. Peter O'Toole is better in Beckett than he is in Lawrence of Arabia. Now, the reason is he's despotic, he's a king, and he's yelling and yelling most of the movie, and it's Shakespearean, and it's very dynamic. So if you ever get a chance to see Beckett, and my dad's favorite actor was Richard Burton. I don't know if you've ever seen any movies with Richard Burton. Richard Burton. Anywho, do you think the NBA fans are enjoying this?
Yeah, I mean, I want to get to some of the groupings for the NBA Cup if you're ready for that. They just announced those. Okay. We can table that. We could table it. Maybe we do that one.
I just love it. Do you, your audience is diverse and they like movie talk, right?
Yeah, it's also July, so I think they know what they're getting when they hit play.
Wait, I just want to see. So you watched I just thought you were going to say other old movies besides Casablanca that you're rewatching. Other classics?
Well, it's not every night. Yeah,
no, I know because you're reading
a list.
You got to read all those books. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for learning. Sorry for learning. I love that. You did that. You tweeted, "Sorry for learning." Those are books he's just moving around his house down in Manhattan Beach, just moving there from shelf to shelf. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that I stacked up my entire Chernow catalog because I interviewed Ron Chernow a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I, was really excited. So I took a picture of those books, and I do think the public figure check out my summer, like look with all the books that I read. Is it about, like, what's that really about? It feels a little narcissistic.
Well,
to be like, these are the books I've
off.
read.
It's showing off.
I'm going to do it, by the way, this summer. End of this summer, look out. But then it's like, am I doing it because I'm trying to be funny and make fun of other people, or am I actually trying to show people that I'm going to try to get through like 3 Susan Bowers, So who knows? Can
I go back? You said something that I liked, and it triggered a thought about writing where you said, "Here's looking at you, kid." They said it. You said they said 4 or 5 times, and you said, "I wonder if someone would come in and say, hey, we're saying it too much." So my brother, who was lone valedictorian of his graduating class of 500, software engineer Chris Kilborn, beautiful calves, had the high jump record for 15 years at Hastings High School, went to Rice University. He loved F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. And he doesn't, I don't even know if he ever watched the movies, the Robert Redford one or the Leo one, because he goes, "I like the book too much. I don't want to watch." But he loved the writing. Long compound sentences, very descriptive. And I also would say, well, do you like Hemingway? Because those are shorter. It's pretty cool how Hemingway is able to paint a picture with these simple sentences or seemingly simple sentences. And he goes, yeah. And I asked him a question. I was writing something. I said, you don't want to say, I don't want to say the word beautiful, 5 times in my script. You want to say other words, lovely and, all these different, attractive, whatever you want to say. And I asked him about F. Scott Fitzgerald, and he said he uses all these different words, but it seems like he only uses the word once. That's how it reads. Like, in other words, if he does use a word a couple times, it doesn't seem that way, which is a high compliment, is what it is to the writer.
Yeah, that's. I hadn't really ever thought of it that way.
Am I going too deep? You want to go back to Dillingham, Shifty?
No, I actually wanted to finish on this. You had a dinner with John Butchergross, and I felt great to be included, except for the part where I wasn't invited to the dinner. And I am not, for the record, doing a "how come I wasn't invited" move, because I would have done that
too long
privately.
A drive for you.
Was there ever a thought of, do you think he would come to this, or should we head down to Manhattan Beach for a nightcap?
He was staying downtown, And I made fun of him because we left and said goodbye from Rayo's Hollywood. And I texted, I said, that was great. I'm sure you're having a nightcap. And he sent me a picture of the nightcap that he was having downtown at his hotel. But I had never met John. My instinct is he wanted one-on-one time initial meeting with Kilborn. That's my guess.
If you had never met, there's no way I should be at that dinner.
Correct. We had never met.
Yeah. Zero.
And
Zero.
man, did we include you with some texts and some jokes.
Multiple posts on multiple platforms.
Yeah.
So, but then it leads to my rep, and they're like, did you actually turn down a dinner with those two guys? And I was like, actually, I'm learning of it as well. And then it was like a twist. Then my friend group was like, wait, they were posting, but then they never really reached out. I go, you know what? I think past a certain age, men shouldn't hold men to any kind of standard when it comes to this kind of thing. So,
he was he's a great guy. I had him on my pod. I like his positive attitude. He enjoys life. He was doing a lot of baseball analogies to the bartender about, this is my leadoff hitter. I'm going to have an espresso martini. And I said, I don't think she follows baseball, and I don't know. But he likes doing that. Could not believe I gave him crap about an espresso martini. And I don't think any human being should have, I know they're popular, do not have an espresso martini. Caffeine, sugar, just have vodka or gin and just keep it simple. I don't think, he doesn't mind that I tell people what he had, because he's in good shape. Really good shape.
Very ripped, sinewy.
Yeah. I think he said his waist was 31, which is, that's a 27-year-old Kilborn. I mean, I can't, that's ridiculous. But I told him about another drink. He had an espresso martini, he had a Negroni, he had red wine with his veal parm. And a bartender told me recently about a drink called The Last Word, which is gin-based, but you can use vodka or tequila or whatever you want, mezcal. And it's got green chartreuse in it, lime juice, and some bitters. But it's a really fun drink. And a friend of mine who likes martinis said, Craig, I've never told you it's my favorite drink. The Last Word, green chartreuse. Very, very interesting. Not too sweet. I felt like I was drinking a green juice from the health food store. Anyways, so he tried it and he liked it.
The Last Word, Beckett, and a 30 to 30 podcast.
Yeah, you've seen, by the way, I have the Life Gorgeous podcast. My favorite thing is my Instagram, very creative flow, Mr. Craig Kilborn. Feel free to follow that. But have you seen 3 Days of the Condor? We've talked about that, right? That's from the 70s with Robert Redford. Really good movie. Faye Dunaway. Please make sure you watch that. 3 Days of the Condor.
Writing it down.
I'm sure you've seen Day of the Jackal from the 70s. They now have a television show.
No, I have a lot of holes.
Eddie
I have a lot of holes.
What's that?
Yeah. I have a lot of holes in the 70s stuff, which some have said is really peak cinema. Somehow.
Godfather.
Jaws.
One-on-one, Robbie Benson. Spike Lee called it the worst basketball movie of all time.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. Life Gorgeous pod out every week during the summer. Are we taking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Proud of you, brother.
You had a compliment for me earlier, or we already covered that?
Well, it was that you said it's on me that I don't like cat.
That's right. I had it in my notes.
Is that a backhanded compliment?
No, I just like that you're listening, buddy.
Yeah.
And make sure you check.
Good. The Wolves are still good, right? The Wolves are good. By the way, you don't know about the 2 7-footers we drafted, right?
They're
supposed to be projects, but they're talented.
Berenger?
Yeah.
I actually liked him. I did.
You did?
I liked, yeah. I mean, he set a screen on a guy on one play that was so vicious that they called a foul on him for setting the screen just because the other guy looked like he ran into a wall. I think it was a legal screen, but it was almost a sympathy whistle.
Right.
I think the first 8 cuts I saw of him, they were all just dunks, filthy. This is what I'm here to do.
Right.
I'm not going to try to make this complicated. He already catches it better than Rudy does,
Correct.
which I know is, I know
Low
that hurts.
Right.
Hurts you to hear that.
No, that's a low bar. Yeah, obviously. These guys are athletes. They both, the other guy is an Australian who's 7'3", 9'7" reach. Rocco, I guess it's Zakarski. And he's lefty, and he's, interestingly, he can shoot threes. He has nice form. He's not as raw, I don't think, as Berenger. But when I was watching highlights, and he was running up and down the court, and my brother was watching highlights, and I said, does he remind you of Bill Walton running? He goes, yes, he does. So it's kind of interesting. So we got these 2 7-footers. I'm not sure what the plan is. See who develops and replaces Rudy, I guess, right?
Well, it is the Twin Cities, but
boom.
Maybe I don't know what you do. It's because I don't have a nickname for you right now. I'm sorry. I'm not good with this. Thank you for this. And we'll make sure we get the word out for the 30 for 30 again, anything with McKay. Obviously, we're huge fans as well. So thanks, man.
Thanks, brother. See you, man.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari, 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice. Our email address, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Couple days away, big dog. Wargon. Getting ready. Dress casual today. I like it.
Yeah.
Why waste any good looks?
I know. A lot of pressure on the looks moving forward.
Why is
that?
Like
I'd be judged. I don't know. It just feels like a lot of people are going to be looking at me.
Getting your haircut today?
No, I'm just rocking with this.
Oh.
I talked to Melissa. She was like, it doesn't look good when you first get it cut. She's like, it's got to grow a bit after that. So
you could get it cut a different length. But you know what? If you're happy, I'm happy.
It sounds like Kyle doesn't know.
If you're happy,
like the way your hair looks.
I'll throw a little gel in it. It'll look okay.
No, it was just like when I had my wedding, it was like my wife had there was the hair person. I think there was a different makeup person, and then there was a photographer, and I was just like, I just got to make sure I get to my barber like the day before.
Yeah.
And that was like my big checklist, Yeah. And she was like, if we have time, maybe I can go get a spray tan. And I'm just like, I hope that guy's got my 11 o'clock still good on Thursday.
No, I did it late last week. So somewhat fresh.
All right. No, I mean, hey, looks great.
Thanks.
I don't know. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking back to the way Kyle said it, was like, hey, are you getting your hair cut? And then
I'm just thinking back. I'm just thinking about me. That's all. What I did.
Right, but then Morgan's like, no, I'm going with this. And then we got like a whoa. So, the thing is, I think Wargon, I don't know if unflappable, like I don't know you well enough. I mean, we didn't talk a lot at ESPN.
Yeah.
You do. Okay.
That was a good line. I mean, at the end of the day, right? You're just kind of the guy in the suit.
No one's looking at me, right?
Like literally all my groomsmen were dressed exactly the same. I think Seinfeld has a good bit about that. It's like if the groom gets cold feet, everyone just takes a step to the right. Like, because they look identical.
The one thing I am worried about, it's going to be like 90 degrees, I think, on Saturday.
Dude, I was thinking like, what kind of shirt can I wear under the suit? The invitation wasn't very specific, so I packed a nice long sleeve. But, whatever. It'll be fine.
All right. We, real quick feedback here. The 7-8 pod. So that's just a couple days ago. 6'2", 210 current player comp post Golden State Warriors, Boogie Cousins. Not looking for advice. Just wanted to say the 7-8 pod with Van was an all-time great. It should be on the RR podcast Rushmore. Curious if you guys have specific episodes that you would rank above the others. Wow. Anything come to mind, Kyle? What was your
Mike's
favorite?
got nothing.
I'm thinking, yeah.
He's like, he just uses that brain wipe as an excuse to never remember
Who have
anything.
we had on? Yeah.
There are like moments that I like, but I don't know about like the overall theme. I actually listened to the first 20 minutes of that today. You guys went deep early. First of all, how dare you talking about religion like that? But no, God, there are moments, but I don't know about like full like conversations where I was like, shit, that one's got to be in the top 4. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
I don't
I'm not
know.
gonna do the I wipe my brain like Mike says, but I just don't know what I would say.
You live it
Chris
and you
Long.
move on.
Chris Longs were good. There were some Chris Longs early on where we were like, I thought we ended the call and we were just like, holy shit, that was pretty awesome, wasn't it? So
Yeah, that was pretty good. I always loved having Chris on those Mondays. I did really enjoy, just at least for me personally, when it hasn't come out yet, it comes out next Tuesday, but the Ron Chernow thing, just because I'd been looking forward to it for years. So I know, Kyle, you weren't on that taping. Wargon, I know, is more of a theatrical guy, but that must have meant something to you to know what went behind Hamilton, what went into it, right?
We made a little Hamilton breakout. That'll be coming out sometime next week. But that was one where it ended and we were like, that was really good. You know?
Okay, good. There was a Cowherd
authors.
one
Yeah.
at my house. The first Cowherd at my house when I first moved here, that was really good. And I think for a while that had been the highest downloaded episode I'd had for like the first few years I think that I was here. So, okay. How about a couple emails, because I seem to be not getting to it in time. Let's see. All right. That's not the one I wanted to read. I don't think so. Sometimes you guys will share your player comps and it'll be 2 paragraphs of just player comp and breaking down the whole thing.
There's got to be a rule.
Well, I appreciate the thoroughness, because everybody's out there advanced scouting.
No, it's nice to have a thing, but
Yeah. Okay. 25, living in New York City, 5'9", 190. I know what you're thinking. I don't know. Truth is, I'm a recovering offensive lineman. I'm not as fat as you're picturing. 5'9", 190. O-line. I wasn't even thinking you were fat, though.
I wasn't picturing
Now
anything.
Yeah.
I
wasn't even thinking about you,
dude. They're playing 8-man football, right? I mean, you could fit in anywhere today.
Player comp, George Niang, body without the height. Play style is cross between Kyle Anderson and Kyle Lowry. I can play as a big or a guard, depending on how tired I am. One of my best friends from growing up invited my girlfriend and I to his new girlfriend's beach house just outside of the city. Never turned down a beach house invite, right, Wargon? When you're living in the city, get away from all the garbage. Well, look, hot garbage in New York is a different kind of garbage.
Yep.
Right?
Smells stronger.
It's warm here right now.
Yeah, there you go. A little toasty. Toasts up the waist. They've been dating for a couple months, and while we met once before, this was a big step, an entire day together, and the 4 of us hit it off. We're even supposed to go on a trip all together later this month. This is great. We share the same sense of humor. It felt very natural. However, her dad was another story. To set the scene, the house is on one of those gated communities that requires knowing multiple existing residents to move in. As you can imagine, years of this process have led to a rather exclusive community. My friend gave us fair warning that my girlfriend and I's political views would likely not align with a lot of people we'd be meeting. Something I think the 15 don't tread on me flags surrounding our beach chairs gave it away. For context, my friend and I don't share the same political and religious views, but we've made sure to never let it come between us. Nice. How, you might ask? Simply put, we don't discuss controversial topics. A healthy diet of sports talk and stories from growing up allow us to remain best friends. A few flags and occasional comment I don't agree with was well worth time at the beach, considering we're usually surrounded by concrete. That was until her dad took it to another level. Sorry, I'm rambling, Ryan. You can take a water break. I got to keep reading, dude. The WNBA came up in conversation, to which his only comment was, dude, I can't read this. I mean, what the guy said is terrible, but even me rereading it and all of us agreeing that it's a terrible comment.
So we can all use our
imagine.
imagination.
Yeah, we can figure out what he said.
It's pretty aggressive enough to stop me in my tracks.
Okay.
So
that's you reading it, or that's you saying it, or him?
No, me right now reacting to it.
Okay.
And the difficulty of me kind of pre-reading, like if I get a blind one, I'm pre-reading.
Yep.
While I'm reading.
That's a good skill.
Yeah, it leads to some clunkiness every now and then when you're reading and speaking on a podcast. But yeah, I'm just not even, because it's going to be guilt by association on that one, by even repeating something somebody else said.
Heard.
Yeah, there you go. Perfectly said, Kyle. All right. I'm not doing that one. What is going on with
we're
us
just
today?
bailing on the whole email?
pulling the
I thought
cord.
we were just going to pretend like we all heard whatever this guy said, and then we'd get to the solution. But I guess without knowing, it's hard to come to a solution.
Okay, let's try this one. What's up, guys? 6'1", 260. No impressive gym stats, dude. You don't need to. 260. Do you know the hockey player that chucked the kid?
Yeah,
everybody knows this video now. Tarnasky.
We're calling that guy a kid that went in the pond.
Well,
I think he was a little man. I think he was just a little man.
What's that guy's week been like?
Oh my God, dude.
Can you imagine? Like, do you even go out?
No, I couldn't imagine. Someone wants to know his name, right? I mean,
well, I'm sure there's probably
sucks.
people that know or have been all over it. I mean, clearly the guy was hammered, but I really was wondering because when they were yelling at him, they were like, "You've been at the tee box like 20 minutes," and so I don't know if he was trying to blame the group in front of him. 20 minutes is an insanely long time, so I'm not even sure if that's necessarily true. But then it gets back to kind of one of those things I've always thought about. I think there should be some baseline thing that you should be able to do for you to be approved to get a full arm sleeve. And then when you're going at an enforcer in the NHL, which by the way, I looked him up, he was listed at 6'2", 220 when he played. He's clearly more than 220 now, but he's 240. But if he's like in the video, that guy looks like he's the mountain. He looks like he's 6'6", 270. So that means the other guy is what?
Right.
Hey, look, don't talk to me about an angle.
I think some guys need to really take a look at themselves. How have you played your last 7 rounds of golf? Maybe we can expand that or contract it. But when it's becoming like, I don't know if I should tee off yet, and we're dealing with backups, like be honest with your game. Are you going to fly the green, or are you going to go over there in the woods and get it? And maybe we could get this show on the road. I understand you don't want to hit into someone, but at a certain point, you don't have to wait till people clear the green if that's not where you're going, buddy.
Yeah, you're asking for the grain on a 3-putt. You know,
right. Come on.
What's the grain here? Like,
anyway,
man. Yeah, no, it's fair. Maybe that'd be more important than just an updated handicap. Like, what's your social golf rating last 7 rounds?
Yeah, because it's like making traffic. Like you can watch how it builds up, and then
I were a baked Alaska at the turn. All right, so let's get back to our guy here. 260, fat and happy. I'm married. I get straight to the point, so I don't have to apologize for a long email. 47, so I've hit the age where all my friends are either already married or probably not getting married. The last wedding my wife and I attended was about 7-8 years ago. Why'd you laugh at that, Kyle? Smash cut to the last month.
I don't know.
Received a saved date for a wedding this fall for a relative. Little backstory: she was doing her surgical residency at the hospital I work at and needed a place to stay. I offered up our guest room, and she was with us for a few months. Both my daughters adore her and have never been to a wedding. They're both psyched. Wow, this all sounds great. My relative is about a year away from being a surgeon, and her soon-to-be husband is a commercial pilot. My wife and I both have great careers, but safe to say we won't be in the same tax bracket as the future Mr. and Mrs. Redacted. My question is this: what's a suitable wedding gift these days? A couple $100 doesn't even seem like it would cover the cost of dinner for a family of 4, and I've been out of the wedding game too long to know what's proper these days. Any advice on the High Council could offer up? Greatly appreciated. Love the pod. Already bummed the schedule's about to get lighter. Can't wait for football season. Okay, thank you. Thanks for listening. Look, I think a lot of it has everything to do. I mean, you're using the tax bracket analogy here. Your tax bracket is the deciding factor, and the people getting married should understand what someone is capable of. They shouldn't be holding everybody the exact same standard. So, like, let's face it. I have guys that I don't think I even got wedding gifts for, and was just like, how long do I have? It was like, oh, you have a year. It was like the best news ever. I was like, that's awesome. The smart thing should have been pick something to the registry. If it's a spatula and it's a nice one, fucking get it. Get on the books.
Get your name on that list. Dude.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like the number of wives during my 20s that were probably like, he didn't send anything. Now, did I make up for it? And did it end up costing me? It was almost like I had a horrible interest rate on it because
right.
Then once I started
back
doing
8
like,
years.
okay, and then better. And then I think one guy was like, we were close enough friends that we could laugh about it. But I was like, hey, he came to visit me and I was like, I have a bunch of stuff for your wife. Like, just tell her. And it was nice stuff. And he was like,
it's a good spatula, dude.
Right. He kind of just looked at me like, I don't know if this is worse.
Should we reopen this wound?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, Wargon, I know, especially since I'm not going to be making it, you'll do all right for me. There's
I'm here
that
to
part
tell
of
you.
it.
I'm here to
Yeah.
tell you that.
Yeah.
I-
Kyle can
I-
back me up on that one.
You give whatever you can give.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
Don't put yourself in like financial hardship for, especially a family member. They're related, he said, right? I don't know how closely, but like, don't put yourself in financial hardship. There's 4 of you, so take that into consideration. But like, give what you can give.
I think about covering your plate, right? And I don't know if you're like
I like that, Kyle.
I don't know if you're the hip to the planning of this, but if it's I think a general normal. I don't know about a pilot and a surgeon if they're going to $120 a plate thing, but that's sort of what we were hovering around. And the only thing that stands out is when your fucking buddy brings a girl and he gives you $50, and it's like, huh, all right, didn't cover half of it, got it, didn't cover a quarter of what you took up.
We're operating the red.
yes. Oh, great, his brother came too. Same deal, great. But I think that's really the only way it stands out. So whatever you feel good about, as long as you're not in that, I think no gift is better than bad gift, and so I think you should be able to figure it out, and then maybe you'll know what kind of wedding this is, and you'll have a better idea of what 4 people will cost them.
Speaking of, Kyle, you see your guy Drake May donated all of his wedding gifts. Hell
Of course I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, things are going so well. I didn't even want to like repost that. I just think there's too many good vibes. It looked like Stephon Diggs is almost smiling in some of those photos, so I'm like, this could be good.
I wish I understood the registry thing better when I first got into the game, because it's on the registry, right? You're not assigned something specifically, right?
You could choose cash or you can pick something there.
You're from Dedham. Okay. Like he got his, not the waffle maker, but a slate for pancakes, right?
Right.
You're from Westport.
I will
maybe
say,
a little Restoration Hardware, so.
My wife went pretty hard on that registry, and I was like, remember, we live in an apartment. Cash is good. And then I'm like, oh, look, salad spoons. Nice. Someone's off the hook with $28 salad spoons from Anthropology. Awesome. I'm like, I even checked to see like, oh, wow, look, all those little guys got ticked off the box real quick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of happy people out there that are happy to give us some napkin rings. We don't have napkins. Like, why did you put that on there? But anyway, that's why I go with cash, because I just remember being like, God damn it, they got the napkin rings.
We got napkin rings too, and I'm like,
shit.
Right. As long as this is like most reasonable people, I don't know that you really need to worry about this. However, I would warn some of you that make gifts, you better be really good at what you're doing. A craftsman.
Yes.
Because sometimes you're like, well, no, I'm just going to make the gift. Like, okay. Like, yeah, this is a cookout bib. You can wear it at your cookouts. It says, I'm with her. I don't know, whatever. All right. I become the villain in my local tennis league. Hey, this could be off of our golf thing. What's up, fellas? First time, long time. Stats 5'11", not afraid. 205. Used to be the Mark Gasol of my CYO league until I stopped growing at the age of 13 and everyone else caught up and I forgot the guard skills. I grew up occasionally hitting the old tennis ball around with my dad and my sister, and even went to a couple week-long camps way back then, but never played an official match until last year. That changed when I joined a USTA rec league in a Boston suburb. Since the spring of 24, it's been a ton of fun and a highlight of the week for me. The league has a mixed bag of competition for mixed doubles. Some people look like Johnny Mac out there, and some look like they've never played before. I'd like to think I'm somewhere in the middle. I can't really serve or hit for power, but I'm pretty quick in the net and have a reliable backhand. Maybe this puts me in the upper echelon of the intro rec league. Okay. This past spring, I think I've become vilified. I think I became vilified within the league. The league coordinator actively roots against me during the matches, clapping and cheering any of my unforced errors. Some random dude was parking his car along the court and stopped to check out the scene, and even he started booing some of my winners. What?
What did you do, man? What did you do?
Yeah, just so we understand that. A random guy who parked his car decided to watch a few points, and then after he watched you, he started booing you when you did well.
Everyone is on the same page with sports hating you, which is the easiest type of hate to get on board with, which sucks for you.
In the championship match last season, which our team had no shot of winning, one of the opponents stopped the match to tell me out loud, quote, "You are really annoying to play against. I don't like playing with you at all," end quote, which I found weird for a rec league tennis match. Where's the USTA spirit? A little later on in the match, she took a lob from me and smacked it down and gave me a prime Serena Williams-inspired fist pump, and her team beat mine in straight sets. I guess some personal reflection. I'm a bit self-constructive on the court towards myself, saying things like, "Come on, Pacino, got to have that," or exalting "damn it" on a miss. But that, I believe, is the only real criticizing of myself and not hurting others. Maybe others perceive it that I think I'm better than them, but that is not my intention. I'm afraid of not being asked to play in this league anymore and having to find a different league. The only problem is the next closest league to me is a level up where I will definitely be a small fish in a big pond. My question ultimately lies with a personal dilemma. Do I embrace the villain role? Should I start putting my hand up to my ear like Alcaraz when people start booing me or on winners' smackdowns at the net? Do I need to tone down the action at the net and live self-critique, or do I bite the bullet and join the more competitive league and get washed there?
Did you ask what the hell is going on?
There's
When
something that we
said-
don't know. Yeah.
When that person said, you're really annoying to play with?
I think there's something he doesn't know. I think we got it.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Maybe you should find out. I know. I get you don't want to be like, you don't want to cave to the haters or whatever, but you might at least want to know what they're hating on. I think it sounds like there's something.
There's something.
I don't know.
Something's amiss.
I haven't played tennis really since I was like a little kid, and it didn't really take to it then either. But like, I don't know. Are you like smacking it at people's feet? Like, is there something that like you can do, but it sucks? Like, I don't know. I don't know what that would be for tennis, but maybe you're just like, you think you have an edge and actually you're like cheating, or I don't know if cheating you would have been called out for, but I don't know. There's got to be something, man.
He probably never stops. I've referenced it a few times, but when Agassi in his biography, which I think is worth reading, even if you're not a huge tennis person, I didn't even really like Agassi after the book. I loved him, but he makes an incredible point. It's like even golfers have a caddy, right? If you're playing tennis, and I used to play against Sarah and Matt when they lived down the street, we all started getting into it. And the funny thing is, like, Matt was more athletic than me. I thought I was better, but then usually his athleticism would win out. And then Sarah would like hit it right in the middle. She would hit it back to you right in the middle every time. And you're like, I'm going to kill her. And it came back in the middle every fucking time, like zero unforced errors. So it was fun. Like the three of us would have these matches. And what you don't realize, like, especially if you're competitive, and clearly Matt pitched and Sarah played college soccer and I'm just a lunatic, but you are talking to yourself so much. And that's Agassi's entire point. Like, you may be able to look at your coach in a big match and like look at him and he's looking back at you, but you were sitting there with your thoughts. It's like a way cooler version of painting. It's the reason why I always hated painting, because you were just sitting there with your thoughts painting for 8-hour shifts. And it just drove me fucking crazy. And, I think the real goal is to learn how to just chill out a little bit. But what's happening here is like, you're down love 30 or something. You're just like, okay, I have to win this point. I have to win this point. I have to win this point. So you're building up like all of this mental tension with nowhere to release it other than the outcome of the point. And then when it doesn't go your way, like, you're just clearly verbalizing this in a way
It's
that's
either fuck
incredibly,
or fuck, yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
No one
like,
likes either one.
yeah. So I can tell what you're doing, but man, I mean, think about it. A stranger who had no affiliation to anybody watched a few volleys and decided to start rooting against you. So you have to be all time annoying. And I think you know that you are, but you don't, maybe because you understand your intent better than anybody else. And you're thinking like, I'm not actually doing this to show anyone up. But if somebody yelled at you and said, hey, you're really annoying. And granted, maybe because it's outside of Boston, somebody else is a little bit more willing to tell you how annoying you are.
Yeah, the
Where
threshold.
maybe if you live somewhere else geographically, they would just be like, what's wrong with this guy? But you have to probably pay a little bit more attention to how verbal you're being throughout an entire match. That's just, these things we can pretend and say, hey, none of it really matters, but you're not joining this kind of thing unless you're competitive. But I do think tennis brings out something in competitive people that makes them crazier than anything else, because it really is such, you could talk about sprinting, but then it's over. Swimming, for the most part, I mean, there's 1,000 different distances and all that kind of stuff. That's its own different challenge. But tennis can go on forever. And then you're talking yourself into being just convinced I'm going to win this point, and then you don't. And you're just clearly freaking out, and your vibe is an entirely different level than everybody else that's in this group. And it's probably driving everyone crazy. And this is where you're stuck.
I wonder, like, what are you wearing? Like, I'm trying to think, is there a version of
Or
like
that.
the guy who shows up to pick up with the shooting sleeve and a headband and like maybe like a matching outfit, you know, like no, I'm not saying like a Knicks, you know, top and bottom, but like maybe there's like, it's like, wow, this whole thing's a little coordinated. And then he's like, maybe he shoots a little more than you think. And it's like, maybe that part alone, if the guy was just chucking a little bit, you'd be this much angry. But because he looks like a douchebag, you like, it raises everything up. Is there like a version of that for tennis? I don't know. You played. Like, could you be showing up just already pissing people off?
No, I know what you're saying. I mean, as somebody who wore a shooting sleeve during the early 2000s for a little stretch, I mean.
Well, everyone bought one. I mean, the question is, do you have stones to wear it today?
Yeah. Do I regret it? I don't.
Okay. When I had first graduated high school, I was on the high school golf team. I was pretty good. I could drive the ball like 300 yards.
Shit.
I would show up. Not anymore. I haven't played in years. I would show up wearing the all orange Ricky Fowler gear. Hat, shirt, pants.
Dude.
People would look at me and be like, who the fuck is this? Now,
do we have a picture of this?
I don't know. But it was hilarious.
I think it's a great question, Kyle.
That's a great question for a lot of sports too.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like one for swimming. I can't imagine, but I don't know. I'm trying to think.
My question would be, I wonder if there's some like heavy grunting going on like every single swing.
But that's people kind of accept that though with tennis. I don't know about any
in
other
like
sports.
Amateur tennis. Do you though?
Yeah, Monica Seles at Wimbledon. That was a little annoying.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. No, you're right. We're covering all like bases here. You got to ask yourself a lot of questions. If you're not going to ask anyone else who seems to hate you, shouldn't be hard to find someone to ask. It seems like. So I don't know.
Okay. All right. That'll do it for us. Wargon, congrats. Have a great weekend celebrating your love and celebrating loneliness is taking an L this weekend, buddy.
Yeah.
And Kyle.
Wheels up tomorrow. Comfort Plus, baby. I'm
nice.
coming in the right headspace. I might even get upgraded. I just said yes. Anywhere in first.
Are you doing a little Poughkeepsie run off of this, I imagine?
No, I'm doing 3 weeks in Poughkeepsie in early August, so it's tempting. One of the guys might shoot down and meet me for dinner tomorrow, but.
So you're going straight in and then right back to LA?
Yeah.
Kyle's a legend. Have you hung out with Kyle in a social setting other than the Coors Light we all shared at my house?
I think that's a no.
Coors Light. I saw him at Philly when we did the live show.
Yep.
I think that's about it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we'll report back.
He's coming in hot. Back in his local haunts. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear a full recap. Unfortunately, he might even have to tape something next week. I don't know, but we can't do that. No offense to your wedding or Kyle. I don't know if we can do wedding recap right off of Chernow, same episode. I think we have to let Chernow. We got to just let him ISO. Yeah, if that's okay. That's okay with everybody. All right, you guys are the best. Thanks to Wargon. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Frias. Ryen Russillo podcast on Spotify and also YouTube. And thanks for listening.
They were going to name me Michael Jordan. My dad was like, I don't think he can live up to it. So they named me Michael Jared.
Must be 21 and older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is there. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.